Israeli strikes killed dozens of people in Lebanon and northern Gaza on Sunday. The head of the Israeli military claims forces killed about 1,000 Hamas militants and captured 1,000 over the past 3 weeks in northern Gaza. A report by the United Nations Human Rights Office says it found close to 70% of the deaths in the first 6 months of the conflict were women and children. Chances of a ceasefire have taken a serious blow. Qatar has paused its role as a mediator between Israel and Hamas due to a lack of willingness by the sides to reach an agreement. One diplomat says that a long-established Hamas office there will have to close, at least for now. Donald Trump's return to the White House has major implications on the Russia-Ukraine war. Over the weekend, both sides launched a record number of drone strikes, and next week marks 1,000 days since Russia invaded. Our Justine Rhee spoke with Ukrainian Americans who are concerned about what happens next.
Brighton Beach Avenue in Brooklyn, a bustling scene with shoppers Thursday. Brighton Beach is at times called Little Odessa, an homage to the Ukrainian city because so many expatriates live there, more than 14,000 of them in the area. People New York One spoke to look forward to Donald Trump returning to the White House.
He's going to do whatever he needs to do, and he's going to help Ukraine.
Mira, who didn't want to give her last name, grew up in Western Ukraine and has been in the city for 35 years. Despite Trump criticizing U.S. aid to Ukraine and saying Ukraine should have made concessions to Russia, she is hopeful.
I know he's going to do right things.
Andrew Andrushuk is optimistic about Trump's foreign policy agenda. His dad has been fighting for Ukraine on the front lines since Russia invaded its neighbor.
Too much killing, too much violence over there. I just want to stop it.
Some Ukrainian Americans New York One spoke with were nervous about Trump getting elected. Former ultra-nationalist member of the Ukrainian parliament, Igor Miroshnichenko, says he's concerned about the incoming Trump administration not providing military aid.
They won't give money for weapons as well.
It was under Trump that the United States first sent weapons to Ukraine in its fight against Russia in 2017. But since then, he has repeatedly criticized American backing of Ukraine. Trump has said he would have a peace deal within a day if elected, but many Ukrainians worry it will amount to appeasement and losing the territory Russia occupies. Advocates for Ukraine say they are trying to gain support from United States lawmakers before Trump's inauguration.
Maybe there's a chance of getting more aid to Ukraine in another budget. There are a lot of retiring senators that can still vote until January. So this is the period where a lot of magic can happen.
Justine Rhee, Spectrum News.
A FEMA supervisor is fired for reportedly telling staff not to help victims of Hurricane Milton that were Trump supporters. In a statement on Saturday, FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell called the incident, quote, reprehensible, saying it was a clear violation of FEMA's core values and principles to help people regardless of their political affiliation, and that the agency would, quote, hold people accountable. Well, FEMA staff have been helping residents affected by Hurricanes Helene and Milton. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has directed state officials to launch their own investigation into the incident. Two members of the royal family are slowly returning to public duty after being sidelined by cancer. Over the weekend, King Charles and Princess Kate attended remembrance ceremonies in London. The events honor fallen service personnel and mark the signing of the Armistice Treaty that ended the First World War. Well, it was the first time this year the princess carried out 2 consecutive days of official public engagements, while the king recently returned from trips abroad. The two announced cancer diagnoses just weeks apart earlier this year and have been slowly returning to public life following treatment. Just ahead here on Spectrum News, we'll introduce you to a veteran who's still living a life of service well beyond his time in the military. Stay with us.
Spectrum News Plus, news from a new perspective, dedicated to refreshing storytelling and empowering communities across the nation. With balanced reporting, providing real context and in-depth coverage 24 hours a day.
Here's Here's a look at your forecast across the country.
Local stories, connecting communities. We are Spectrum News Plus. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
When you never have to worry about thinking too big? Because you have a connection that's ready for anything. That's Life Unlimited. That's Spectrum.
Food isn't just fuel to live, it's fuel to grow. My family relied on public assistance to help provide meals for us. These meals fueled my involvement in theater and the arts as a child, which fostered my love for acting. The Feeding America network of food banks helps millions of people put food on the table. When people are fed, futures are nourished. Join the movement to end hunger, and together we can open endless possibilities for people to thrive. Visit feedingamerica.org/actnow.
You're not going to get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big.
Good morning, I'm Steph Menacero. You are watching a Spectrum News special report. President Joe Biden now speaking at the National Veterans Day observance at Arlington National Cemetery on this Veterans Day. Let's go ahead and listen in live.
National Emblem March. Please place your right hand over your heart or render a hand salute. Distinguished guests, please remain standing for the invocation given by Chaplain Kimberly Willis, Executive Director of the Chaplain Service for the United States Department of Veterans Affairs, and for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Please join me in a prayer commensurate with your faith tradition. Let us pray. Sovereign Architect of the universe, we summon your presence to this hallowed amphitheater where we congregate as one people. In this sanctuary of remembrance, we lift our collective voice to exalt those who don the uniform in our nation's defense. These stalwart guardians, champions of America's loftiest ideas, have stood as sentinels of human dignity, freedom's fierce advocates, and justice's unwavering allies. From twilight last gleaming to dawn's early light, they've maintained their vigil on terra firma across turbulent seas, in skies both serene and storm-tossed, and even unto the stars themselves. Their sacrifice has been the mortar binding the bricks of our shining city on the hill, a beacon of hope for all, from the mightiest to the most humble. You, O divine weaver of destinies, know intimately each thread in the tapestry of their lives, every name, every face, every silent burden borne. Omniscient healer, you perceive the wounds both seen and unseen, the scars etched upon body and soul. Your balm of comfort envelops those awaiting the return of those missing in action and those who have lost their beloved to the altar of liberty. Your strength, O bulwark against grief's relentless tide. Benevolent Creator, we beseech your blessings upon the Department of Veteran Affairs and veteran service organizations who champion our veterans' cause. Extend your grace to the families and caregivers who walk alongside our heroes, and guide the hands of those tasked with mending the wounds of war. Finally, we ask that you bless each person here today with the strength to carry forward the torch of democracy. May we be found worthy of the legacy our veterans have entrusted to us by tending to the garden of freedom with vigilance and care. And may God continue to bless the United States of America, guiding us to realize our promise. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Now, I'd like to invite Mr. John S. Hanzik, National President, Fleet Reserve Association, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. It is now my distinct privilege to introduce you the members of the Veterans Day National Committee. The committee was formed by presidential order in 1954 to plan this annual observance in honor of America's veterans and to support Veterans Day observances throughout the nation. Please hold your applause until I have introduced each special guest. If you're able, please stand when your name is called. Retired Command Master Chief Petty Officer John S. Hanzik, National President, Fleet Reserve Association. Retired Sergeant Major Horace Johnson, National Commander, AMVETS. Mr. Joseph Patterson, National Commander, Army and Navy Union, United States of America. Retired United States Navy Force Master Chief Gary McCure, President, Non-Commissioned Officers Association of the United States of America. Mr. Gary B. Leach, National Vice Commander, the American Legion. Mr. Robert Olivares, Jr., National Commander, Military Order of the Purple Heart. Mr. Timothy Morgan, National Commandant and Chief Executive Officer, Marine Corps League. Retired United States Army Major General Father William D. Razwoff, Executive Director, Military Chaplains Association of the United States of America. Mr. Robert Thomas, National President and Chairman of the Board, Paralyzed Veterans of America. Mr. Michael Perry, National Commander, Legion of Valor of the United States of America. Retired United States Air Force Lieutenant Colonel David J. Worley, Commander-in-Chief, Military Order of the World Wars. Retired United States Navy Chief Petty Officer Deborah Olshig, Immediate Past National President, TRIA, the Enlisted Association. Retired United States Army Colonel Paris Davis, Medal of Honor recipient, Congressional Medal of Honor, Society of the United States of America. Mr. Daniel Contreras, National Commander, Disabled American Veterans. Retired United States Air Force Lieutenant General Brian Kelly, President and Chief Executive Officer, Military Officers Association of America. Commander Catherine Jakes, Chair, Board of Directors, Commissioned Officers Association of the United States Public Health Service. Mr. Keith Reed, Chief Executive, Air Force Sergeants Association. Mr. Michael Stetz, National Commander, Polish Legion of American Veterans of the United States of America. Retired United States Army, Sergeant First Class David Pickett, National President, Korean War Veterans Association of the United States of America. Mr. David Rodriguez, Sr., National Commander, American GI Forum of the United States. Mr. Lawrence Wolf, National Commander, Catholic War Veterans. Mr. Paul Mims, National President, Blinded Veterans Association. Retired United States Army Command Sergeant Major Gary Ginsberg, National Commander, Jewish War Veterans of the United States of America. Mr. John McManus, National President, Vietnam Veterans of America. Mr. Tim Peters, National Junior Vice Commander-in-Chief, Veterans of Foreign Wars of the United States. The Associate and Emeritus members of the committee are also here with us today. I'd like to ask the presidents and national commanders who comprise of our Associate and Emeritus membership to stand and be recognized. Distinguished guests, please join me in recognizing our veterans' national leadership with your applause. It is now my pleasure to introduce the Executive Director, Army National Military Cemeteries and the Office of Army Cemeteries, Ms. Karen Durham Aguilera.
Hey, good morning. What a beautiful day. But every day is a beautiful day here at Arlington National Cemetery. On behalf of the Secretary of the Army, Honorable Warmoth, and the dedicated men and women who serve here, welcome to Arlington National Cemetery. I especially extend a warm welcome to President Joe Biden. Thank you, Mr. President. for being with us. In honoring our nation's veterans, welcome also to First Lady Dr. Jill Biden, Vice President Harris, and Second Gentleman Imhoff. I want to thank the host for today's observance, Secretary of Veteran Affairs McDonough, and his key guest, Fleet Reserve Association National President, Mr. John Hansick. Welcome. Our Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, and our Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General C.Q. Brown. Welcome also to visiting dignitaries, cabinet secretaries, service chiefs, our veterans and families, and everyone watching across our great nation. Thank you for being with us. The theme of Veterans Day 2024 is a legacy of loyalty and service. For over 160 years, Arlington National Cemetery's legacy has been to serve proudly and honorably as the final resting place for more than 420,000 service members and their families. I cannot think of a more fitting place than here, the very center of our nation's most hallowed grounds, to commemorate and honor America's past, present, and future service members. Arlington National Cemetery embodies our nation's enduring gratitude for our veterans. Each grave marker and monument tell a story of service, commitment, and sacrifice. These 639 acres represent a solemn gathering place for families and friends to remember their service members, celebrate their contributions, and take comfort in their everlasting legacy that continues to uplift our country today. It is poignant that each person here today and across the nation, we can all recall the impact a service member has had on our lives, whether personally or through the steadfast protection of our nation. The courageous actions of those who serve have an enduring legacy, not just in the United States, but across the world. And as you walk the grounds of our nation's most sacred shrine, remember, no gravesite at Arlington National Cemetery can ever be purchased. Each must be earned with honorable service. To those with family or friends laid to rest here, please know we will always take care of your loved one. Remember them and recognize their service to this great nation. This commitment is the heartbeat of our mission, and each day it inspires every one of our active duty, veteran, and civilian employees. To serve here is an honor and a privilege. I extend my gratitude to spouses, parents, family members, and the Gold Star community for your unwavering devotion and commitment to your loved ones who have served or are currently serving in any capacity. Your courageous support does not go unnoticed. And for veterans, you are the backbone of our country. You have taken an oath to honor and protect our country. And in the words of President Eisenhower, your service preserves our heritage of freedom. And our mission at Arlington National Cemetery is to honor you always. We see you and we celebrate your legacy, loyalty, and service today and every day. Again, welcome to Arlington National Cemetery. Thank you.
I would now like to introduce our Veterans Service Organization host for 2024, the Fleet Reserve Association. Today on Veterans Day, the Fleet Reserve Association celebrates its 100th anniversary as a congressionally chartered VSO. FRA is dedicated to representing the interests and needs of former and current members of the United States Navy, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard before Congress and other government agencies. FRA was born out of the need to protect the pay and benefits of sea service members and their families. Founded by Navy Chief Yeoman George L. Carlin, FRA received its charter in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1924. In 1998, FRA became the first organization to seek repeal of the Military Retirement Reform Act, leading Congress to change the law. FRA joined other VSOs in campaigns, such as authorizing pay hikes for mid-career enlisted personnel, calling for payday lending reform, providing post-9/11 GI Bill benefits to career personnel and their families, implementing absentee voting reform, passing the Blue Water Navy Vietnam Veterans Act, and most recently, the passing of the PACT Act. FRA is a sponsor of the Navy Sailors and Recruiters of the Year, the Marine Corps Recruiters and Drill Instructors of the Year, and the Coast Guard Enlisted Persons and Recruiters of the Year. Annually, FRA sponsors a patriotic-themed essay contest for students in grades 7 through 12 and awards higher education scholarships to sea service family members totaling more than $100,000. At the forefront of FRA's engagement during the past year is FRA's national president, Mr. John S. Hanzik. A Vietnam veteran, Mr. Hanzik joined FRA in 1968. In September 2023, he was elected to the position of FRA National President. Honored guests, please welcome the President of the Reserve Association, Mr. John S. Hanzik.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending the 2024 Veterans Day service here at Arlington. We gather here on these hallowed grounds to honor and give thanks to all our veterans for their service and sacrifice in protecting our great nation. Some of my thunder was stolen a little bit ago, but I'm going to say this anyway. In 1954, under then-President Dwight Eisenhower, Armistice Day was transitioned to become Veterans Day to honor and include all veterans. I believe it was his intent when he said to include all veterans. He also meant veterans who had made the ultimate sacrifice. To my fellow veterans, I salute you. And I thank you for your service and sacrifice. But there's another group out here today and across this great nation that also deserves recognition. It's our families and our loved ones who support and sacrifice us while we serve. We couldn't have done our jobs without their support. And to you, I also say, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Once again, I'm going to repeat something, but I have to do this because I'm very proud of it. This is also a special day for the Fleet Reserve Association, as previously mentioned. On this day in 1924, Congress chartered us as a veteran service organization. We are 100 years old. To my fellow shipmates, happy birthday! I mentioned to the VA secretary a moment ago before I got up here to speak, never in my wildest dreams did I ever imagine becoming national president, let alone for the centennial, or the honor and privilege to address all of you today. But again, I want to say thank you for attending. God bless our troops. Bring them home safe. God bless our families and their families, and keep them safe. And God bless America. Now I am honored to introduce the host for today's ceremony, and our chair for the Veterans Day National Committee and the Secretary of Veterans Affairs, Dennis McDonough. Mr. Secretary.
Thank you, John. Yes, you do. Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
John, thank you very much for that introduction, for your leadership of the Fleet Reserve Association, and a special thanks to your team for partnering with VA and hosting today's ceremony. Mr. President, Dr. Biden, Madam Vice President, Mr. Emhoff, Ranking Member Takano, teammates among the cabinet members, most importantly, all the veterans, your families, caregivers, and survivors, good morning. In all of America, there is no place more sacred than the ground we stand on today here in Arlington and across our country's national and state veteran cemeteries. Here lie in eternal rest presidents and privates, five-star generals, Medal of Honor recipients, and anonymous heroes known but to God. There are veterans from every American war since the Revolution, including veterans of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan buried in Section 60. Every new grave dug, every benediction murmured, every tear shed, every solemn commitment to this hallowed ground tells the story of our nation's history. Yet as I look around, I see something else too. I see friends, loved ones, family members of veterans. Some sitting next to their veteran, holding hands, grateful for their presence. Others here to mourn their lost loved one, buried within these sacred hills overlooking our nation's capital. As John just said, military and veteran family members may not wear a uniform, but their courage and sacrifice are profound and worthy of our admiration. Military families endure the hardships of long deployments and training exercises without their loved ones. They pick up their lives and move across the country, even across the globe when their service member gets a new assignment. They selflessly care for the injured or ill service member or veteran when they're unable to care for themselves. So we're here today to honor them as well. I'm thinking of veteran family members like Angela Bell. Angela's son, Sean, served 20 years in the Army and died by suicide in 2021. Angela has dedicated her life to helping other families avoid that same devastation. I'm thinking of Cindy and Lee Stover, who have cared for their son, Joe, a Navy veteran, since he was partially paralyzed after a traumatic brain injury. Cindy and Lee show that veteran caregivers are heroes too. I'm thinking of Danny Ingram, Marine veteran, husband to a fellow Marine, Staff Sergeant Eric Alva, the first Marine seriously injured in the Iraq War. Danny fights for all veterans and family members, saying that, like so many military spouses, I do what I can to be supportive of someone who's not only my love, but also my hero. I'm thinking of Ellen Gustafson, wife of an active duty Navy SEAL. Ellen brings together veterans and military family members to volunteer as poll workers, strengthening our nation and its democracy through public service. I'm thinking of Jeremy Hilton, Navy veteran and Air Force spouse. Jeremy has found a new mission, advocating for military children with special needs. And I'm thinking of family members like VA's Deputy Secretary Tanya Bradshaw, Army combat vet, spouse, daughter, granddaughter of combat veterans. An example of the shared family value of service that is so often passed down from one generation to another. Of course, we have another strong military family in attendance today. The surviving mother and father of Iraq combat vet, Major Beau Biden. President Biden and Dr. Biden have been unrelenting in their advocacy for veterans and their families. President Biden has spent his entire career fighting like hell for veterans, just as he charged me and my VA teammates to do 4 years ago. He has continuously demanded that VA deliver more care and more benefits to more vets than ever before. Mr. President, thank you for your no-nonsense, frequently personally delivered in unmistakable fashion. Demand that VA take care of vets. Thank you for reminding us that we still have so much work to do. And thank you for always keeping the faith. With that, it is my great privilege and my profound honor to introduce the 46th President of the United States of America, Joe Biden.
Thank you. It's a great honor to be standing here again. Over 160 years ago, during what would become his final days in office, President Abraham Lincoln addressed this nation, and he said, "Let us strive on to finish the work we're in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne the battle." My fellow Americans, First Lady, Vice President Harris, and Second Gentleman, Secretary Blinken, Austin, McDonough, Mayorkas, Chairman Brown, most importantly, our veterans, service members, and their families. I've said it many times before. I got in trouble for saying it when I was a young senator. I said we have many obligations, but only one truly sacred obligation. Sacred. To prepare those we send into harm's way and to care for them and their families when they return home and when they don't. It's an obligation, not based on party or politics, but on a promise that unites us all. And today, as we strive on to finish the work of our moment, to bind the nation's wounds once again, we commit and recommit to this sacred vow. This is the last time I will stand here at Arlington as Commander-in-Chief. It's been the greatest honor of my life to lead you, to serve you, to care for you, to defend you, just as you defended us, generation after generation after generation. You are the greatest fighting force, and this is not hyperbole, the finest fighting force in the history of the world. I'll never forget standing at Valley Forge, where our nation's first soldiers laid down their lives to deliver a nation where everyone is entitled to inalienable rights, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. And I'll never forget walking the hills of Gettysburg, where thousands more shed their blood to make those words real. I'll never forget in Belleau Woods, visiting there to pay tribute to the heroes who stepped on that beach, or standing in the cliffs of Normandy 80 years after D-Day to honor the service members and veterans who literally saved the world with absolute heroism. Just standing there, you wonder how in God's name did they have the courage to do what they did. I'll never forget visiting bases in Korea, where America's sons and daughters answers a call to defend the people they had never met. Or paying my respects in Hanoi, where so many of our troops defended democracy, including my friend and once worked for me, Senator John McCain. I'll never forget my trips to Afghanistan and Iraq, where tour after tour, young men and women served and sacrificed to keep our nation safe. 4 presidents faced a decision after we had gotten bin Laden whether to end our longest war in history in Afghanistan. I was determined not to leave it to the 5th. Every day I still carry a card with me, my schedule every single day for the last 10 years. On the back of my schedule it says, U.S. daily troops in Afghanistan. U.S. troops died in Afghanistan as of today, 2,465. Troops wounded in Afghanistan, 20,769. U.S. troops, Iraq, died in Iraq, 4,620. Wounded in Iraq, 32,766. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my duty as president, but also as a parent. Like many of you, our son Beau Biden deployed to Iraq for a year with the Delaware National Guard. I still remember the day he asked me to pin his bars on him. He stood ramrod straight. How proud Jill and I, our entire family felt. Like so many of you, we also remember how hard it was when he was deployed. Empty seats at the dinner table, missed holidays and birthdays, prayers of hope and worry, repeated every morning and every night. Just as we ask everything of our veterans, we ask everything of their families. The English poet John Milton wrote, and I quote, "They also serve who only stand and wait, as so many of you have." So for all the military families, to all those with a loved one still missing or unaccounted for, to all Americans grieving the loss of a loved one who wore the uniform, Jill and I want you to know we see you, we thank you, and we'll never stop working to meet our sacred obligation to you and your families. Jill and I, Doug and Kamala, our entire administration, are proud of our work for the past 4 years. Together we passed more than 30 bipartisan laws to support our veterans and their families, caregivers and survivors. We brought veterans' homelessness down to a record low. We delivered more benefits to more veterans than any ever before in VA history. We've invested record resources to reduce the scourge of veteran suicide. We took action to protect veterans from scams, because no veteran should be defrauded by those they defended. All these actions are vital, but I'm particularly proud of finally passing the PACT Act. This is the most significant law in our history, our nation's history, to help millions of veterans who are exposed to toxins like Agent Orange and burn pits during their military service. Pits the size of football fields that incinerated the wastes of war, tires, chemicals, batteries, jet fuel, and so much more. Pits that left too many veterans with headaches, numbness, dizziness, asthma, and cancer. The PACT Act has already helped over 1 million veterans and their families get the benefits they deserve. They deserve those benefits. Today, I'm proud to announce that the VA will expand the number of cancers covered under the PACT Act. And to all veterans who served at K2 Air Base in Uzbekistan, constantly surrounded by toxins, we want to honor you. We want to have your back, just like we did in Agent Orange, just like we're going to rule to make sure you don't have to prove your illness as a consequence of your service, which is often too hard to do. God willing, we will make sure that any rare condition you've developed is covered. And we're committed to getting this rule in place by the end of my term. Folks, this matters. Too many of our nation's veterans have served only to return home to suffer from permanent effects of poisonous chemicals. Too many have died, like our son Bo and like Sergeant First Class Heath Robinson, from whom the PACT Act was named. A couple years ago, after I signed the PACT Act, I handed a pen to his daughter, Braylee. She and her mom are with us today. I don't know where you are, but God love you. There they are. Stand up, ladies. And give me a word, I mean this. I'll never forget. After I handed the signing pen, that beautiful young lady who lost her whole world, she held the pen in her hand, and she looked at me and she said, "Thank you. Thank you for my daddy. God love you, honey. God love you." But I don't think she was just thanking me. She was thanking all of you here, all of us. Everyone who fought hard and came together to keep our promise to our veterans, to keep the faith. My fellow Americans, we stand here today. We think about all that our veterans have given to our nation, serving and sacrificing in uniform, just as they serve and sacrifice here at home, as educators, firefighters, law enforcement officers, construction workers, entrepreneurs, business leaders, doctors, nurses, elected leaders, and so much more. And just as they routinely put aside differences to work together, this is the moment. This is the moment to come together as a nation, to keep faith in each other. The world is dependent on each of you and all of us, all of you, to keep honoring the women and the men and the families who have borne the battle, to keep protecting everything they fought for, to keep striving to heal our nation's wounds, to keep perfecting our union. We're the only nation in the world built on an idea. Every other nation is based on things like geography, ethnicity, religion. But we're the only nation, the only in the world, built on an idea. And that idea is we're all created equal, deserve to be created equal throughout our lives. We haven't lived up to it every time, but we've never walked away from it. Even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. And today, standing together to honor those Americans who have dared all, risked all, and given all to our nation, we must say clearly, we never will give up. God bless our veterans and their families. And may God protect our troops today and always. God love you. Thank you so much.
And we just listened to President Biden speaking there at Arlington National Cemetery on this Veterans Day. The president honoring our veterans, also saying this is a moment for our nation to come together and heal our wounds. President Biden there speaking about the work he has done in office to improve the lives of veterans. He also committed to what he called the sacred vow of protecting our troops, saying this was the last time he would be standing there as president, calling it the greatest honor of his life to do so. I do want to welcome in our Spectrum News national D.C. reporter, Daniel Grimes. Daniel, I want to know what stood out to you from the president's remarks there.
Yeah, honestly, what stood out to me the most is just the president reflecting on the 4 years during his time in office. He talked about the Afghanistan withdrawal. Of course, that was a big part of the campaign that we just went through. The president received a lot of pushback for the way that he withdrew, but he stood by the withdrawal, saying that he didn't want to leave it to whoever his successor was. And so that was a big part. He also talked about and reflected on the PACT Act and the passing of that and just the aid overall that he's given to veterans veterans. That includes veteran health care. And he mentioned the work isn't done, that he wants to actually expand the coverage in the PACT Act and to allow for veterans to not have to, go through a bunch of red tape to prove that their illness is a result of their time served. That's something that a lot of veterans have to endure now. He says he wants to streamline that process in the days that he has left in office. And I just wanted to take a note to also note that this is the first time we've seen Vice President Kamala Harris and the president together in weeks. Obviously, he was not a big part of the campaign, and so this is the first time we're seeing her since she conceded the race last week, and the first time we're seeing them together in weeks.
And when she was introduced, one of the many people there introduced, she got a huge round of applause from the crowd there today, Daniel.
Yeah, she certainly did. I mean, there's still a lot of Democrats going back and forth about the blame game. I haven't heard, and the sources I've talked to, a lot of people pointing to her as the big reason, which is shocking when we think about 2016 and Hillary Clinton. A lot of people pointed to her not going to Michigan or Wisconsin enough. But a lot of my sources and a lot of the stuff that I've read has just been largely about Joe Biden, whether he should have dropped out of the race sooner enough or whether he should have run at all. And so Vice President Harris is actually getting out of this campaign largely unscathed. I think that that's really great for her future prospects if she wants to be a figure in the party moving forward. And as you alluded to, she received a huge applause there. Obviously, this is not a campaign. This is largely this is part of their White House duties, honoring the veterans. But it was notable that she received that large applause.
Daniel, you mentioned Afghanistan earlier. Biden, when he pulled out that card from his pocket, saying that he has been carrying that card with him every day for the past decade or so with the troops, the number of troops killed in Afghanistan as well as Iraq, mentioning his son Beau, of course, saying that as a president, but also as a parent, it is his duty to protect their troops. What did you make of that moment today?
Yeah, we've heard the president during his time in office mention Beau, who died back in 2015 of brain cancer, and the service that Beau did to the country. That was just one of those personal moments. When you think back to why President Joe Biden was elected in the first place, it was his ability to connect to people and to Americans and just that heart that he carries. And so that was the biggest takeaway there. It was just reflecting on the heart that he brought to the office the last 4 years.
Okay, Daniel Grimes, thank you so much for your time and insight, and thank you at home for watching. Again, I'm Steph Menacero. More news coming up right now as Spectrum News continues. Stay with us.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. 2 million.